Welcome to another segment of our mental health moment. My name is Linda Golick. I'm the health and well-being consultant at Bellin Health, and I am so pleased again to be joined by our behavioral health therapist, Hannah Bauer. Hi, Hannah.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good.
It is spring in our neck
It
of the woods,
is.
and we got a little bit of green going on outside, so I'm happy
Mhm.
about that. Happy
Yeah,
about that,
finally.
right? It was the
Yeah.
winter that just wouldn't let go here
I
in
know.
Wisconsin.
Last week it was snow, and then yesterday it was like 70 degrees. So,
More of the 70s, please. I'll take
yes,
that.
we're
I'll take
ready.
that. Well, I really want to take some time today. One of the significant topics that we are really addressing in the 2024 series of the Lifesaver Wellbeing Program is the idea of the loneliness epidemic. So
Mhm.
we know we're hearing more and there's more and more research on loneliness and its effects on our health. And one kind of shocking headline that you'll see in the materials, if you look them up on lifesaver.org, is loneliness is the new smoking. And being lonely is actually can have the health impact equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So
Mhm.
we're going to talk about today, and Hannah's going to help us explore some options for helping people that are feeling
Yeah.
lonely. So Hannah, first of all, that headline, that 15 cigarettes a day, is that true? What do
Yeah.
you think?
I can definitely see it, just being isolated to your even if it's not necessarily being isolated to your house, but just feeling like there's no connection, that definitely depletes your motivation to do anything. And when you're feeling that way, of course, you're going to have very physical effects. You're not going to be moving as much, not going to be eating as healthy, if at all.
Mm,
Your body's going to respond accordingly when you're
yeah.
feeling just that down. So I can definitely see that it would have very physical effects.
Yeah, and so that's really that connection, right? We start to see based upon
Mhm.
how we feel, we will take
Yeah,
certain actions or we won't take certain actions
right.
because if we're not feeling good about ourselves, why
Mhm.
would we exercise? Why
Right.
would we get good
Yeah,
nutrition? It all
yeah.
really goes hand in hand.
Yes, it's all so connected. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we start to talk about if someone is feeling lonely and maybe just some of the key notes about that and what people can do about it. And one of the things that I had just said in some of my materials this month is that if you are feeling lonely, I think the number one thing you need to do is you need to tell somebody.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's important too to recognize, like, loneliness isn't always completely being on your own, right? It's not just the neighbor that lives on their own that doesn't have anyone that comes to visit. It can be someone that seems very social. Maybe it's someone that has a lot of people around them, but they just feel
Hmm.
like there's people that don't understand them. There's so many ways to just feel lonely amongst a lot of people, but it's very important to communicate the way that you're feeling because other people may not notice, right? If you see someone that's living kind of alone and there's not a lot of interaction, it's so easy to assume they must want to live that way, right? They're just they're homebodies. They want to be on their own.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how they're choosing to live their life. That's why it's so important to advocate for yourself, and
Hmm.
it's important to be honest with yourself. We can fool ourselves into thinking, well, this must be what I want. It's not. Like if you're feeling miserable, chances are that you are miserable. You don't like the way that you are feeling. So it's important first be honest with yourself and then tell someone. It doesn't matter who you tell. If it's your doctor, if it's, someone that comes to the house, if it's your mail person, someone, just be honest. Say
Yeah.
I'm feeling really lonely right now because then that changes the way that someone's going to interact with you. Maybe they take an extra 5 minutes. That can make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the traps that we fall into in today's day and age is the technology trap. And
Mhm.
I kind of think, sometimes social media can make us feel even more lonely. And
Yes.
being with people electronically is not the same as
Mhm.
being with them in person.
Yes. Yes. And we are most certainly not our authentic selves online, so
Mm-hmm.
it is like such a fabricated version of ourselves that we're putting out there,
Yes.
which can make
Yes.
us feel so disconnected. So you may have 1,000 friends online, but like those people don't really know you. So that's just going to magnify that feeling of these people don't know me. Like I'm alone. I feel very lonely. I don't have anyone to connect with. And again, like you said, you're not connecting with these people on a real level where you're in person, talking, sharing space, sharing time together. So it's really important to be deliberate in how you're using social media, but also to disconnect from social media too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so what are your suggestions? If somebody is feeling lonely, we talked about telling someone and that type of thing,
Mhm.
but what are some other solutions for people? Like what kind of actions do you think they can take to help themselves?
Sure. So I think it's really helpful to recognize that a lot of change is going to be uncomfortable. So yes, feeling lonely is not an ideal feeling. Also changing that is not going to be an
Mm,
ideal feeling. So putting
mm-hmm,
yourself out there to be around
mm-hmm,
people when you're not used to that is going to be uncomfortable. But that's something that I would recommend, just getting used to being around people. Doesn't mean
mm-hmm,
that you go introduce yourself to everyone that you encounter, but you start to slowly like reintroduce yourself to just being social, whether
mm-hmm,
that's going out to dinner on your own. Doesn't mean that you have to talk to everyone, but you want to start putting yourself in a position to meet people. Spring and summer are excellent times to just
mm-hmm,
go outside. You can go for walks. I've had people that, if they're in a position to have a pet, if they're in a position to get a dog, that's a great way to meet people. They can go for
mm-hmm.
walks with their dog, they can meet other people that
Yeah.
have dogs, and it just takes away like some of that awkwardness that they're afraid that they're going to feel. But if they're not in
Yeah.
that position, you can still go for a walk. You can go to, a festival, you can go to a farmer's market, even just those brief conversations, asking questions. It's a good way to break the ice and just get used to talking to other people, start sharing
Mm-hmm.
some common interests, and start building up your confidence so that you can start making just some more of those human connections.
One thing I've noticed, back to the dog thing, like even just going with your dog to the dog park, you're gonna meet
Mhm.
other people that have
Yes.
dogs, and you end up striking up conversations like, "Oh, what kind
Yeah.
of dog do you have?" And how
Yes.
old is your dog? And oh, your dog is the same
Mhm.
breed as my dog. And
Yeah.
you end up you do kind of make some connections, and it is putting
Mhm.
you with other human beings in a pretty non-threatening,
Yes.
situation. You don't have to go and have dinner with these people or
Right.
anything, but you're getting some
Yes.
social interaction, which is
Yes.
which is really healthy.
Yes.
There's
Yes, and
so
it
much
gets you out of your
data.
head.
Yeah, there's so much data out there about the people that live the longest are the ones that have that strong social
Yeah.
network. And I want to dispel the idea that, oh, those are the social people, those are the extroverted people that have a
Right.
thousand friends.
Right.
That's not what we mean,
Mhm.
right, Hannah? What do we
Right.
mean when we say like strong social connections?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. It's a connection. Someone who's an extrovert, like, yes, they might be very good at interacting with people, at like starting conversations, at like starting some of those things, but like a connection is something that's maintained. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
having a social support is something that it's reciprocated, it's something that's
Mm-hmm.
able to be maintained, and it's not this huge variety of people. Maybe it's a collection of maybe 5 to 10 people, but
Mm-hmm.
it's so solid that it's something that's reliable. It's something
Mm-hmm.
that is comfortable. It's something that you can count on. It's not threatening. It's nice.
Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
kind of social support that is actually supportive. You don't need to be an extrovert in order to benefit from something like that.
One thing that I noticed that has worked well with some of the folks I know, and particularly, I just wanted to share a story about my mom. So, my dad had passed away about 15 years ago, and my mom and dad were high school sweethearts. So that was
Mm.
a pretty big life change for my mom, and rightfully so. She was feeling pretty
Yes.
lonely, right? All the kids are grown
Mhm.
up and out of the house.
Yeah.
And you know what she did? She started volunteering. She started
Yeah.
volunteering, and that has been such a
Mhm.
lifeline for her.
Yes.
So I want to remind people volunteering can actually be
Yeah.
a great way to
Yes.
meet people,
Yep.
and it's going to make you feel good, and you're
Yes.
going to form some connections there.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and it's in a great way, like you said, it makes you feel good. It boosts your self-esteem and it gives you, kind of like that sense of purpose too. And again, like those
Mhm.
connections, some of them are going to be short, they're going to be brief, but like they're purposeful, which is also very important. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and get involved with things that you like. If you like pets,
Yes.
you could volunteer at a humane
Mhm.
society. If
Yeah.
you like kids, you can volunteer at a
Yes.
school or a daycare. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many
Yes,
options.
there's so many options. I think the goal, the trick is just you have to be deliberate. You have to put yourself in a position to find those things, whether it's an internet search or if you are just, get out of the house and go to a coffee shop and look. Usually there's postings, or at a grocery
Mm,
store or wherever it may be. You just have to look for those opportunities to put yourself in that position to find that volunteered opportunity or just to meet those people.
Another note that I had made was, yeah, just the idea of getting outside. It is a time of year where there's
Yes.
going to be more things going on. We're going to have more opportunities to just get with people. I mean, even if
Yes.
they're not people that what's the power of just being with people, even
Yeah.
at like a concert or something?
Yeah, I think that's also tied in the power of just saying yes. Sometimes I'm not, and it's not saying that you have
Mm,
to say yes to all of the things that you're invited to or all of the options that you have, but just sharing in a moment with somebody else and being a part of something is so important. It's important to look back and be like, well, I enjoyed this with, say, 100 other people. Like, yes, it's not a very personal experience sharing with 100 other people, but you were a part of something, and it's
mhm.
it's really nice to be a part of something that's a little bit bigger than just you.
Yeah.
It's really important as a human being to share in things. And on the flip side too, it's really important to reach out, to notice that there are other people outside of ourselves that
Yeah.
would definitely benefit from our presence, from our friendship, from just our kind words or just inclusion in general.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's a
Yeah.
great reminder too. We can be the one that reaches out, that helps
Right.
someone else be not
Yeah.
lonely.
Yeah, because it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to take much. It doesn't even have to be a friendship. It's just how is your day? Or how are you doing? Or do you need
Hmm.
anything? It doesn't have to be this huge commitment. It's just, the acknowledgement, the consideration. It can mean a lot to someone who's feeling kind of isolated.
Yeah. Yeah. And we just want to remind you, if you are feeling something, please say something. Sometimes
Yes.
people can be surrounded by people and yet they still
Yeah.
feel lonely. And
Yes.
if that is you, if you have that feeling, please,
Mm-hmm.
please tell someone about it. Please reach out,
Yeah.
please share, because
Yeah.
we want to get you to a place where you don't have to feel that way anymore.
Yes. Yeah, and a lot of times it happens so slowly over a period of time
Mm,
that you don't realize how significant that feeling is until you start to tell someone about it and you start to feel better and you're like, "Wow, did not realize that I was feeling so low for such a long time and I was so used to it that I was going to just live the rest of my life that way."
yeah,
You don't have to. You have options, you have choices, you can talk about it and you can feel better.
yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, great conversation on loneliness, Hannah. I really appreciate your
Yeah.
insight with all of that and just your knowledge, because I'm sure those are things that you deal with on a daily basis with some of your
Yeah.
folks. Any
Mhm.
other thoughts? Anything else you wanted to share with our audience in terms of loneliness? Anything else you'd like them to
Um,
know?
I don't know. I think, like we talked about, obviously social media can be definitely a hindrance. I think for some people that's kind of like their first step also, and I
Hmm.
think change can start small. So if people are more comfortable starting to just interact with people via social media, obviously be cautious, but there are definitely some apps that can start to ease you into that if that's your first connection with the world because I'd rather you start small and get
Yeah.
comfortable if that's, how people kind of want to get started. I think obviously in person is best. You know, if there's places that you feel like you can go and get out of the house, I think that's always best, especially now that we're finally out of winter and you can get some fresh air and the sun is out sometimes. That's
Yeah.
ideal. But, you know, for some people, that's just not an option for, you know, a variety of reasons. So if that's something that people are comfortable with, I think that's option. I think it's something that if you're going to use, definitely talk about it. You know, make sure that if, I mean, even if it's just like your provider that you're letting know and just saying, like, hey, I'm using this app and I'm talking to people, you know, let them know how it's going, let them know how you're feeling when you're using it, just so that people are just kind of in the loop with how you're kind of dealing with this loneliness, just because
Yeah.
the internet's full of a lot of unknowns, you know, and you
Hmm.
want to be able to protect yourself and you want to be able to use some of the
Hmm.
supports that you have to keep
Yeah.
yourself safe. Um,
Yeah.
but you know, it can be a tool. And for some people that's the tool that they have. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that's about it.
Good. Good. Well, thank you so much, Hannah. Always
You're very
appreciate your
welcome.
insight and your experience and your thoughts. And again, the loneliness epidemic is just something we're going to continually kind of
Yeah.
focus on throughout the year. So you'll be hearing more
Yeah.
information on this hopefully in the future.
Hmm.
But we thank you everybody for taking time today and listening to this podcast. So please like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.